Now, the right time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNradio.com.
We got about one more day. Well, no, we got a couple more days. Free agency's going to come. Holding off this baseball for as long as I can, fellas. I'm doing this for you. And it's not that I don't like baseball, but I know you guys don't want to hear me talk about baseball, and you don't want to talk about baseball either. And I know that because you never talked to me about baseball. Anyway, I'm going to keep this basketball thing going as long as I can. And free agency begins at 12:01 Wednesday. 12:01 Wednesday, free agency begins. And I got to say, I didn't realize, I pick on people who I think are just kind of slaves to the NFL. NFL tells you anything is interesting, you jump up and you do it. You get all charged up about mini camps and everything else, and you watch preseason games and the stuff like that. You know what I mean? That being said, I'm pretty charged up about the start of free agency when the most attractive free agent on the market is LaMarcus Aldridge. Hey. And it's not that LaMarcus Aldridge isn't good or anything, but I've never felt like, man, LaMarcus Aldridge, he's going to be the guy to swing the direction of the NBA. I mean, we got lucky. We've had 2 LeBron free agencies in the last 5 years or so, right? That really kind of changed everything, and now I think I'm kind of residually hype about free agency right now. Now, check this out. LaMarcus Aldridge has scheduled visits this week, one with the Lakers, one with the Rockets. That's going to be today, all right? Tomorrow, he's meeting with the Spurs, the Mavericks, the Suns, and the Raptors. And then on Thursday, he is going to meet with the Knicks. As I understand it, he's going to meet with teams in Los Angeles because LaMarcus Aldridge has a place in Orange County. Yeah. LaMarcus Aldridge lives in Orange County, which, I got to say, I don't know how many times you wonderful people have been to Orange County, California, or if you're so familiar with it, but dog, that's hustling backwards right there. There are ways for you to do Southern California without doing, full-on L.A. that are wow, I didn't see that one coming at all. I mean, if that's your idea of fun, you go ahead and do that, champ. But everybody's going to come out to L.A. to meet with LaMarcus Aldridge. And I got to say, LaMarcus Aldridge is doing this just a little bit different than I am. Just a little bit different than I am. Because I got to tell you, if I were the most coveted free agent in the free agency class, and he really is. I mean, LeBron James, you can make the argument, of course, but he's not going anywhere. But if I'm the dude that everybody's trying to come change my mind, you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to change my mind. That's what you're going to have to do. So, 9:01 Pacific time, I imagine LaMarcus Aldridge will be meeting with the Lakers. The Lakers apparently have a very special surprise for him. That's what Ramona Shelburne of ESPN says. They have a very, very special surprise prepared for LaMarcus Aldridge. And that's real cool. But my first question, if I'm him, is, y'all ready to go to dinner? Because we about to go to dinner, and we about to do it up. All right? Look, man, when you are in high school and they are recruiting you for college, they call you in where you have your little official visit and they treat you like a king and everything else and da-da-da. But look, man, in a league that has a draft, you don't really get to do that anymore. You get drafted, right? They fly you in to work you out. You got to impress them. When you're a free agent, they've got to impress you. And you don't get too many opportunities out there where they have got to impress you. And let me tell you, they would all be dancing. Like Greg Popovich says, if you need him to call at midnight, we're probably not the team for you anyway, so he's going to wind up going to sleep. And, hey, I might not hold that against you, Greg Popovich, but somebody going to be dancing at 9:01 if I am a free agent. So if I'm LaMarcus Aldridge, I'm coming to dinner, and if you think I'm coming alone, you're crazy. That's right. The crew is coming with me. Absolutely. And I don't know what I'm going to order, but I know how much it's going to cost. The market rate. That's what it's going to cost. I'm eating y'all out of house and home. I'm ordering stuff just to take it home. I'm doing all of these things. And you know why? I'm the dude who's 6'11", who can shoot from 22 feet. That's the way that I would play it if I was a free agent. Like, I see this happen on social media. People bring this up when guys are free agents, and they're like, okay, well, if you're not really going to leave, then why are you entertaining these visits? People are like, well, he just wants his ego stroked. You damn right. That's exactly what I want to do. I want my ego stroked. Like, I don't need my ego stroked by my woman. Nah. I don't need that. I don't even need my ego stroked by my boss. But if that's what he wants to do, who in the world am I to stop him? He is, after all, the boss. And if you are vying for the privilege of being my boss, oh yeah, we about to wild out. Now, I guess LaMarcus Aldridge just doesn't want to get on a plane. He's a better man than me in that regard if he just doesn't want to get on a plane. Because look here, I'm going to the cities that I want to go to, all right? So let me tell you the cities of the teams that will be meeting me in Los Angeles if I'm LaMarcus Aldridge and I have a place in Los Angeles. The Mavericks, I'm from Dallas. I know what's up there. I go there all the time. The Suns, yeah, it's the summer. Y'all come out here and meet with me. The Raptors, oh, no. I love Toronto. You guys fly me up there. And then from there, I will fly to New York to meet with the Knicks. Got to go down to Houston. Check out, what's her name, Malaya? I'm sure she'll be working. Go holler at her for a second. I'll do that. But I'm all about living it up on other people's dime. Like, totally there. Like, I will know I have made it as a professional when they give me one of those corporate credit cards where they don't actually check the receipt, right? Like, it's very interesting. Like, now, I work in television now, right? So I meet more people than I would have known otherwise. I hang out sometimes with people that I wouldn't have hung out with before, right? People on television. And it's very interesting. Like, you can tell the graduations of what stage people are at in their careers on stuff, right? So, like when my man Pablo comes to Miami, me and Pablo come to dinner, he's there on a magazine story. You know, we start trying to figure out what the restaurant is, right? You know, what restaurant is it that Pablo could put them expenses in on and nobody's really going to trip, right? But, like, if I wind up at dinner with Wilbon, I will take that bowl of $26 lobster biscuit prime 112. He's playing a little bit of a different game. You know what I mean? I, on the other hand, don't have a card of any sort. So, like, I'm talking hypothetical about what I do. But if I had one of those cards and nobody's checking all my receipts, man, it'd look like chair. It would look like Allen Iverson had gotten back to the league, except we ain't going to no TGI Fridays. That's right. We going to some places they'd prefer we didn't show up. And by they, I don't mean my bosses. I mean the owners of the establishment. And that's exactly how I played if I was a free agent. Let you be turned off by me. You know, we were really turned off. Bomani had all of his loud, uncouth friends with him at the dinner. I don't think we want him on the team. I just like to remind you guys I'm 6'11" and I can shoot from 22 feet. Well, hopefully you won't be bringing those guys around too much. Oh, yeah, you'll never see them again, man. But, you know, they always trying to go out to dinner. I figure, why should I pay if you would? All day long. I'd be very polite. You know, like if you were recruiting me to be a free agent, I'd be very polite. I'd be very kind. Like, you wouldn't have to worry about me being disrespectful toward anybody. Like, do you realize how polite I would be when I looked at the waitress and said, a bottle of your most expensive wine, please? Right? I don't even drink. That's just going to come. She's going to uncork that, pour that out in the glass in front of me. I'd be like, hey, one of y'all want to taste this, man? I ain't even drinking tonight, bro. I'm not even doing that. I did that for y'all. That is how I would play my free agent game.
Bomani.
Been talking about free agency. I told you all the things I'd be doing. What a jerk I would be acting if they made me a free agent. Just because, why not? You the one who wants me. Right? You the one who wants me. And I know a lot of people get really critical of cats because they ask for these different things in free agency. And I guess I'm kind of numb to these sorts of things because before I got into sports, I did a lot of work around the record industry, you know, a lot of rappers, stuff like that. Have you ever gotten a look at a concert rider? And if you don't know, a concert rider is basically the list of requirements that an act has when they come and they put on a show, right? So, for example, back in the day, I was backstage at a concert that Mystical did. I interviewed him for the school paper, right? So, like, he gets off his plane. I never forget this for the life of me, man. He gets off his plane. I meet him at the airport. We get in the limo because I'm doing the interview in the limo. And the dude sits down, and the first thing that happens is his homeboy pulls out a blunt, and he's in the limousine, and he just starts smoking his weed. And he's like, am I charming y'all or am I boring y'all? And everybody's like, hey, man, just do what you do, right? And so we do the interview. I do want to note, though, like, just so you understand, and not that there weren't plenty of other reasons to question Mystical's character, but he pulled out that blunt and he lit it up and he passed it to his homeboy, and there may be 3-4 other people in the limousine, and he ain't offer anything at all to anybody else. Like, not saying that we wanted to smoke no weed or anything else, but I just feel like if you're going to do that, the least you can do is offer, right? Anyway, on Mystical's concert rider, he's like he never performed anywhere if he didn't have seafood. But he got back in that limousine and he started smoking that weed, and he forgot he had the seafood, man. We ate those shrimp. They were good. They were real good. But anyway, people just ask for crazy stuff just because they can when they wind up in these situations. And when there's nothing to lose from asking for something crazy, why not ask for something crazy? Like I knew this cat, Barber, the barbershop I used to go to when I lived in Durham, North Carolina. He said what he'd do to pass the time was that he would just sit on his computer in the chair, right? And if he didn't have any customers, he would just go on Craigslist and he would just send people ridiculous offers. Like that's what he would do. He would just spend all his time sending people ridiculous offers because you never know who might wind up saying yes. You never know, right? I feel like that's going on right now in free agency. Our Chris Broussard has reported that DeAndre Jordan, by the way, clearly doesn't want to play with the Clippers anymore. And I say he clearly doesn't want to play with the Clippers anymore because the thing the Clippers have on their side in free agency that nobody else has is the Clippers can offer a 5-year contract. DeAndre Jordan's telling everybody he wants a 4-year contract with an opt-out after 3. Right. So the advantage the Clippers have, he just said, hey, bro, don't even worry about that. I ain't even thinking like that. All right? So DeAndre Jordan, tired of being the third wheel, right? That's what our man Chris Broussard is reporting, that DeAndre Jordan is tired of being the third wheel behind Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, which is interesting because it appears that Blake Griffin is a little tired of being the second wheel. Anyway, DeAndre Jordan is tired of being the third wheel, and DeAndre Jordan wants to go somewhere where he can have, and I quote, a bigger role in the offense, unquote. Because sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, you just make people ridiculous offers because why not? DeAndre Jordan wants a bigger role in the offense. I feel like that young man is setting himself up for heartbreak. I can't believe that, right? He's just setting himself up for misery because he's going to go to all these places, right? And at all these places, they're going to be like, yeah, you can have a bigger role in the offense. Absolutely. We wouldn't have you here if we didn't want you to have a big role in the offense. Ain't nobody about to pass you the ball. Like, it ain't like you just got here. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not as though we have never seen DeAndre Jordan play basketball. Like, homie, we know who you are. You shoot 70% from the field because nobody trusts you to take any shots that you could possibly miss. Like, that's it. That's it. I ain't even mad at him. Like, I respect the fact that he's going to look somebody in the eye and say, I mean, I just want to go someplace where I can showcase the hard work that I put on my offensive game. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great. He'd be like all those kids that go to college and say they want to play quarterback. And then next thing you know, they spend the rest of their careers backpedaling, covering, catching passes, punting, perhaps. All of those things, right? That's exactly what's going to happen with DeAndre Jordan. But, hey, man, that's what he says he wants. He's like, I'm tired of being the third wheel. You tired of being the third wheel? My dude, you ain't the third wheel. You the wrench. You like a tool. Like if something happens to the other wheels, we use you to try to get that wheel off. but we're never, like, putting you onto the car to make it responsible for rolling. That would just be preposterous. Like, you're tired of being the third wheel. His offensive game is like a cinder block. Look, I don't know. Like, I have no idea what it looks like in practice, right? Like, maybe DeAndre Jordan, like me, is from Houston, right? Maybe DeAndre Jordan is in there dream shaking when can't none of us see. It is entirely possible. I have no idea, like, what goes on. Maybe Chris Paul is holding him back in that regard. Like, maybe you go and you catch DeAndre Jordan playing at 24-Hour Fitness or, like, Equinox up there in New York. You know, you find him at the gym somewhere. The next thing you know, you see him, and there's DeAndre Jordan in the lane with that sky hook. Maybe. I just haven't seen it. I've been given very little evidence of such a thing. Very, very, very little evidence. All right? He says that, excuse me, he doesn't say this. It's been reports that the Mavericks are the team that is most likely to get DeAndre Jordan. And, okay, possibly. I'm going to just tell you right now, though, DeAndre Jordan, when you show up, and they give you Eric Dampier's old number, please understand that they don't plan for you to be taking those shots.
Bomani.
So have you seen the story? Adrian Wojnarowski of Yahoo Sports reported that the Kings have probed the idea of John Calipari taking over as the head coach and general manager of their operation, and that Cal has made it clear that it would take $10 million a year in order to get him there. Yeah, it's a lot going on. Then you add to it that DeMarcus Cousins and Cal from Kentucky, we've got those connections there, right? So I got my man from KentuckySportsRadio.com, Matt Jones, joining us to talk about this. Matt, what's going on?
How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing all right, sir. Now, what did you think about this idea of the Kings talking to Cal?
Well, all right, I've always said for Calipari to leave Kentucky, he's going to have two things. Number one, he's going to have complete control of the team. And number two, he's going to have a team where he believes he can win. And I thought for a while those could be mutually exclusive. I mean, a team that can win, are they going to give him complete control? And a team that gives him complete control can win. So when that came up, I was actually on the radio, and I thought, I don't know if that's going to work. But then you get complete control. You have the notion of if they were to trade for, say, Rondo or Bledsoe, maybe they'd be slightly competitive. And then, of course, he was supposed to go on Seth Greenberg's show, and he canceled. And so I thought, okay, there's something to this. And then, of course, Calipari 30 minutes later says there isn't. But it has the makings of a place that I think Calipari would consider, but I'm not sure it would actually happen in Sacramento. I'm just not sure Cal's a Sacramento kind of guy.
Well, and you know Cal pretty well. Is his personality engineered for an 82-game season?
I don't know, but here's the thing. I don't think it is, actually. But here's the thing about Cal. He hates to be told he can't do something. And it's become sort of common wisdom that Cal can't coach in the NBA. It didn't work. And he's one of these college guys who didn't win. And I don't think he likes that. So I do think there's a part of him that really would like to have a chance at some point to show that. But, this is a pretty good gig here. And a lot of people give him a hard time for the whole, how much he puts into getting guys in the draft. But Bomani, he's real about that. He loves seeing these guys get picked, and he knows as long as he's at Kentucky, he'll put 3 to 5 guys or more in the draft every single year.
We're talking to Matt Jones at KentuckySportsRadio.com. Now, the Sacramento thing comes up in part because of the presence of DeMarcus Cousins, who you also know pretty well. What is their relationship like?
So, I think that actually is something that some people see that as, well, why would he want to deal with DeMarcus? I look at it differently. I actually think DeMarcus is almost a selling factor. Of all the guys Calipari's had, I think you could make a claim that he might feel the closest to DeMarcus. I mean, there's a couple other guys, too. Derrick Rose is one of them. But he thinks of DeMarcus almost like a son. And I think in the same way he feels like he gets unfair publicity and unfair criticism, he thinks DeMarcus does as well. So the idea of being able to kind of resurrect his NBA career and help DeMarcus kind of maybe change the mindset about him, I actually think that would be kind of appealing to him. I just don't know if anything else about that job would be appealing, but that actually would probably be a selling point. They are close, and I think Calipari really, really cares about DeMarcus, and coaching him would be something I don't think he'd mind doing.
Well, I know that they care about each other, but does that mean necessarily that Boogie would want to play for Cal? Because Cal can be a bit exhausting as your coach.
Well, now that's the second part, and I don't know about that, but I will say this. Calipari, even to this day, can talk to DeMarcus in a way that I don't know that there's another person that can. Calipari, I've seen him even since he's been with the Kings sort of interact with DeMarcus and tell him things he needs to do that I don't think anybody else could get away with. Now, would DeMarcus want to hear that for 82 games? I don't know. But I will tell you this. If anybody could get away with being the kind of coach that yells at his players with DeMarcus, Cal would, because DeMarcus trusts him. And I've told you this before. The thing with DeMarcus is he puts you in one of two categories, trusts you or doesn't. And once you're in the doesn't, like George Karl probably is, it's over at that point. And Calipari's in the trust category, so I think he could make that work if he wanted to.
All right, we're talking to Matt Jones at KentuckySportsRadio.com. Now, you love Boogie. You're a big Boogie fan. What is it that you like so much about Boogie?
I love Boogie. I mean, I think, first of all, the year he was here, there was almost nobody that's been here that was better with fans, with kids. I like DeMarcus because I think he's a kid who, A, plays hard 90% of the time. Now, of course, there's the famous plays on the internet where he doesn't get back on defense, et cetera. But, I think that's picking out a couple things. He normally brings it, and he's brought it on a terrible team, and he did that here. I also just think he's a kid. He's a big kid who needs structure. I think his heart is in the right place. And here's the thing. People always assume he's such a bad guy. Bo, has he ever been in trouble off the court, to your knowledge?
No, I think Clay Travis learned that the hard way.
Yeah, he hasn't. He's never been in trouble. And most of his sins, if you think about it, are sins of almost caring too much. He gets mad if guys don't do what they're supposed to do or if he feels like the coach isn't doing well. They're not sins out of not caring. They're almost sins out of caring too much. And so I just like the guy. He makes mistakes. He does stuff sometimes that I'm like, why are you doing that, DeMarcus? But I think generally speaking, he's a good guy. His heart's in the right place. And if he can get in the right situation or have the right coach, I think he can explode. He just hasn't had that yet in Sacramento.
All right, talking to Matt Jones at KentuckySportsRadio.com. And you mentioned that Kentucky job. You say it's a great job, and it is a great job. But it's a hard job with a lot of pressure there. How much more is there for Cal to do there?
Well, it is a hard job, but it's a perfect job for him. I mean, he's so restless, and he's like a guy in the spotlight. And this is a place where I don't care what day of the week it is. He can say something, and it's the biggest story in the state. So, like yesterday, a guy asked him a question about the Confederate flag, and this state starts debating the Confederate flag because of Cal. Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, the governor, they came out against the Confederate flag. Nobody cared. Calipari came out against the Confederate flag, and it was the number one debate in the state. He has that kind of power, and I would argue also, Bomani, he has national power. You're talking about this on the show. It led most of the ESPN shows today. If he goes to Sacramento, that'll go away. He is powerful because college coaches are powerful, and he's the biggest name in college basketball along with Krzyzewski. I think he would miss all of that if he left. Now, what else can he accomplish? He can win one or two more titles, but I think the biggest thing is he can be the main show in college basketball, and he can put a lot of guys in the NBA, which I think he does care about.
Well, let me ask this. Is it at the point now in Kentucky with him basically where it's win a national title of the season is a failure?
It's getting close, and this shocked me, but I actually just yesterday on my show said, all right, what would it take for this to be a successful season? And like 60% of the people said, well, we have to go to a Final Four. That's an unbelievable standard. And then there are people who say, if you look at the last 6 years, Cal and Kentucky may have left 2 or 3 titles on the table. Get to the championship game, lose. Probably should have won it this year. Maybe should have won it with the John Wall team. So, yeah, for some people, as amazing as it sounds, it kind of is, title or not. But I think for most fans, they just like the fact Kentucky's in the mix every single year. And you know Kentucky fans well enough to know this. They just want people to be talking about Kentucky. And as long as Cal's here, Kentucky will always be a topic.
Matt Jones, KentuckySportsRadio.com. My man, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bomani.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Bomani.
So, NASCAR is got their Confederate flag situation, right? They're trying to get it up out of there. Because, see, NASCAR is in an uncomfortable situation, and the biggest problem that NASCAR has really is people are quicker to stereotype the fans of NASCAR than they are to stereotype the fans of anybody else in sports. Right? I think we'd have to agree on this. Now, one thing that often happens when I talk about the mistreatment of black people in this country, I often get people who say that Southern white folks are the only people who are openly stereotyped and laughed at and nobody cares. Now, I would not say that they are the only people who suffer that fate, but it is a fate they do, in fact, suffer. Right? Like, I think that's kind of indisputable. You want to laugh at rednecks, no organization is coming to get you if you do that. Right? That's how it goes. Like, I think that that's a legitimate point, even if it's often brought up at the wrong time. It's a legitimate point. So with NASCAR, look, NASCAR is trying to get eyeballs on the television and people at the track to look at all of those logos, right? Everybody's trying to do that, but not everybody's trying to do it like NASCAR is trying to do it. It's just the nature of the game. They're playing this game on sponsorships, and there aren't a lot of companies that want a bunch of Confederate flags waving as you look down and you see their product. There just aren't, right? So NASCAR, more than anybody else, they're like, man, I really need y'all to calm down. I really, really, really need y'all to chill out. Please, I'm begging you. Like, Brian France in charge at NASCAR, he sounds like the dudes who used to be coaching at Ole Miss when they were waving the flag. They're like, dude, we can't get them to come here if y'all keep doing that. Damn. Right? So here's the thing. NASCAR has said, we don't want you waving the flag at the stadiums anymore, at the tracks. We don't want you to do that, okay? But how do you enforce that? It's very, very, very tricky. How do you actually enforce that? And gradually you're going to see a situation where people just stop bringing these flags to the track. It's going to become passé. Like, it's just going to become poor social behavior for people, and then they're going to stop. So like at Ole Miss, where they had the problems with people bringing the flags and they needed them to stop because, once again, they kind of wanted black guys to play football there. The way they ultimately got it done was they said, all right, bring the flag if you want, but your flag can't be on a stick because the stick is a safety concern. And, if we're going to be honest here, at a college football game, I think it's best for people to not have sticks also. Anyway, the stick became the technicality that wound up getting the flag out of there. NASCAR's trying to figure out a way to do this, all right? And to be fair to NASCAR, they've been trying to figure this out for a long time. Like, I didn't realize this, that there had been plans in 2012 for Bubba Watson to drive the car from the Dukes of Hazzard at a pre-race event. And NASCAR was like, man, what are you talking about? With the flag on the... No. We cannot do that. We cannot do that. So NASCAR, Brian France says that they're going to be as aggressive as they can be in trying to eliminate the flag from the infield. The problem is this. Once a decision was made to bring that down from the State House in South Carolina, and then you saw the same thing happen in Alabama where they pulled down that pretty significant Confederate flag, the people who really want to wave that flag are really going to want to wave that flag because can't nobody tell them to take those flags down, right? You always have to worry about there being some level of backlash. And when people feel like they're being treated unfairly, they then come on the other side. I'm not saying these people are being treated unfairly. I'm just telling you how the psychology of it all works. Like, you remember the NCAA made fools of themselves by trying to hammer on Penn State, and they're like, we are going to tear down this football-first culture at Penn State. And Penn State's culture is just as football-first as it ever was. Because they came back on the other end. Right? Like, once you attack them in that way, they're going to come back on the other end. So Brian France is sitting here like, how in the world are we going to be able to make this happen? because they want to make it happen. I don't think NASCAR gets enough credit for their desire to be more diverse. I mean, it's based on capitalism, but I think that there's a real desire there. Like, I've done a couple of things with NASCAR folks that have given me like the legitimate impression that they care about these things. Like, I really do believe that they do. But I tell you this, Brian France knows those people at those tracks better than I do. He knows what will and will not work with those folks at those tracks better than I do. And from here, I think the worst thing in the world you could do is try to go around and snatch the flags out of people's hands. So what's the best that he could do? Offer an exchange program, right? You come in with your Confederate flag. Well, sir, how would you like this brand new American flag? Small problem. That's not going to work. Like, I'm willing to bet, and I could be wrong here, right? That there's a level of generalization that I'm engaging in right now. But you tell me if you think I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that most of those people who are coming there with a Confederate flag already have an American flag at home, too. It's fairly counterintuitive, I do understand. However, if those folks coming to that stadium wanted to bring an American flag with them, they would have brought an American flag. They brought the Confederate flag because they wanted to bring the Confederate flag. Like, that's the whole reason they're there. How in the world do you get them to stop? And how do you get them to stop when there are going to be people who bring the flag purely in defiance? The sort of people who are going to be resentful of the idea of a flag exchange because they know what's going on here, right? Good luck with that. Really. Good luck with that. Because I'm not sure that can work. Here's the thing I did find interesting, though. Here's what NASCAR said. Or the president of the Daytona International Speedway said that because fans had purchased tickets and the event was so close to happening, they would not change the flag policy for the weekend. That doesn't make much sense on its face, right? That doesn't make much sense at all on its face. Like, how many people have bought tickets to NASCAR races throughout this year? Because basically what you're saying is anybody that's bought a ticket can bring a Confederate flag. If the idea is you bought the tickets before, they say, well, the event is so close to happening. Like, it's not hard to leave your Confederate flag in your hotel room, right? It's not hard to leave your Confederate flag in your RV. That's not difficult to do. But I think these folks are smart enough to recognize you can only go but so hard right now. So they're going to try to shame them coming in. Why don't you take an American flag? That's what they're going to try to do. It's not going to work right away. At least I don't think it's going to work right away. It'll be interesting to see gradually how this works out, because the only thing that's truly going to be able to get people to stop bringing Confederate flags to races, the only way is it's going to have to be out of line. Like, it's going to have to be a social faux pas. That's the thing that'll make you stop. When I was in graduate school, we read this book called Institutional Change, Economic Performance by Nobel Prize winning economist Douglas North, right? And what North said was you have formal institutions and you have informal institutions. And he said that no matter how you change the formal institutions, the informal institutions are always going to evolve at their own rate. Like they'll probably get to where the formal institution is, but they're going to evolve at their own rate. See, that's the place that NASCAR is in right now. You can't just tell people what to do and make it work instantly. They just can't. There's no chance. So somehow they've got to hope that people wind up embarrassing themselves by doing that. Like, they've got to hope that people look on television and see this, and there are enough people who say that those folks are making us look bad. Like Steve Spurrier said, seeing people with the Confederate flag, he said this in 2007, was an embarrassment to the state of South Carolina. Like, you're going to have people that, like, actually buy in and actually believe that. That's the only way that this is going to work for them. But I applaud them for trying. I give them all the credit in the world for trying to make this work. And I recognize that it's harder for NASCAR than it appears to. And I think that if this doesn't happen right away, so people are going to come down real hard on the people in NASCAR themselves. No. The people who are doing something wrong is not NASCAR. It ain't the people driving the cars and trucks in NASCAR either. It's people bringing that damn flag. And NASCAR's fighting an uphill battle against this one.
Bomani.
Friend of our program, Haynes of the Northeast Ohio Media Group, he did an interview with Scottie Pippen. This was at the Nike Basketball Academy in Los Angeles. And, I got to say this. Chris got there at the right time, man, because there's nothing better than interviewing somebody right when they feel like saying something insane. All right? Now listen to this, okay? I'm going to read this for you, okay? The elated parents on the sideline viewing James playfully schooling the young kids prompted a debate as to whom James' game compares to. Only two Hall of Famers mentioned and disputed were Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. The debate went on for about 10 minutes. It's an ongoing years-old argument, but one Hall of Famer not mentioned above says people need to look beyond Jordan and Magic when breaking down James' skill set. I was LeBron James before LeBron James. Bulls great Scottie Pippen told Northeast Ohio Media Group, it's not even close. Not even close to what? What's not close? Guys, anybody? What's not close? Because the only thing I see that ain't close is the idea that Scottie Pippen was LeBron James before LeBron James. Now, I've said this many times. The comparison is difficult because LeBron is quite possibly the greatest athlete we've ever seen on a basketball court. But the guy that I have always thought compared most favorably to LeBron James in terms of what type of game he had was Larry Bird. Now, I think that throws people off because we think so much of Larry Bird as being a shooter and not a guy that went to the basket, and LeBron otherwise. But go look at the numbers. You go look at the lines that LeBron has put up in his career. Now, Larry Bird early rebounded a lot more, but it's also worth noting Larry Bird played in a game that had a lot more possessions than the modern game has, so some of those counting stats are going to be a little bit inflated. But, let me pull up Larry Bird's 1987 season, which is probably the best Larry Bird season of all Larry Bird seasons, all right? 1987. Larry Bird put up 28 points, 9 boards, 7.5 assists, 1.8 steals a game. I mean, that's a LeBron line for you there. When you go look at Magic, Magic wasn't doing the scoring that LeBron did. And that was in large part just because they were asking something different of Magic. But LeBron's been the guy being asked to do these things from the wing more so than the top like Magic was. I've always thought Larry Bird was a comparison. I ain't never thought once about Scottie Pippen. Has anybody thought once about Scottie Pippen? Has there been one time in your life that you've seen LeBron James and been like, damn, he reminds me of Scottie Pippen? Because I haven't. But there's Scottie Pippen. Now, here's something for you to note, though, by the way. And the telephone number is 888-729-3776. Remember that time Scottie Pippen said LeBron was better than Jordan? Or would be better than Jordan? You remember that? That's right. I got this headline right here. Alonzo Mourning. Pippen said LeBron would have kicked Jordan's butt. Well, he didn't say butt. But that's what he said. That's right. That's right. You see what Scotty's doing, right? Scotty's like, MJ cool and all, but, the real way to play basketball is the way that I play basketball. That's kind of what that is right there. Hey, Scotty, I ain't even mad at you, right? Because think about this for a second. How many duos can you think of? When you think about NBA basketball and you think about duos, how many duos are there where the other person in the duo is absolutely number two, right? Is absolutely Robin. When LeBron and Dwayne Wade got together, you could make the argument in LeBron's first year there that they were co-Batman. Those NBA Finals, if they win those NBA Finals, had the Heat won those, Dwayne Wade would have been the MVP, right? nobody ever really thinks of Bird and McHale as a duo. They talk about that whole front line, but McHale, as cold as he was, we don't think about it as being a duo, right? There's just Pippen, the other dude. And let me tell you how much the other dude, Pippen, is. I got a buddy, right? And he was talking to another buddy about a company that they worked at. And one guy called the other one, and he says, I think that me and you could be the Jordan and Pippen of this place. And my man responded to him and said, and who the hell is Pippen? Right? Because if you're talking to a dude and he says to you, I think that we could be the Jordan and the Pippen, you have just demoted me. You have just demoted me. You have just told me that I'm number 2. Am I supposed to feel like there's a compliment there? Am I supposed to, how am I supposed to feel about that? You telling me that I can be Pippen. That's a half step away from being Tony Kukoc or Horace Grant. You know what I mean? That ain't no compliment. And that's the life that Scottie Pippen lives. So Scottie got to get his shine whenever he can. And that's the shine that he's going to get. You know, LeBron James is really just playing the same game that I played. Yeah, that's right. I got to find somebody that I can say I was before they were anybody. Like, it's going to be a little while because I'm not old enough to really be making these sorts of comparisons. You realize Scottie Pippen's about to be 50 years old? Just in case you wanted to be old? Yeah, 50 years old.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, including our next guest. He works for Comcast Sports Chicago, covering the Chicago Bulls. His name is Vince Goodwill. Vince, what's going on?
Bomani, how are you?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. So I have to ask you this because I thought it was kind of funny. What did you think about the report that LeBron would like Cleveland to sign Mike Dunleavy?
I think LeBron wants a lot of things. I just think that he's just filling up the shopping cart, just trying to see what Dan Gilbert is going to pay for. You know, like one of those kids at the grocery store, they just keep putting stuff in the basket and just keep waiting on the parents to say no, theoretically, except LeBron's parents.
So was he?
That's all that is.
Like, he's just doing this to see if Dan Gilbert will do it. Like, hey, Mike Dunleavy, you let me know if he calls you. I'm just trying to see something right fast.
He's just trying to let everybody know that LeBron is in charge and that he can try to pluck any guy from any team that's out there of any work just to see Dan Gilbert run wild.
All right, we're talking to Vince Goodwill of Comcast Sports Chicago. All right, Jimmy Butler has been a story. The Bulls made the max tender for him. Anybody that would want to sign him would have to offer him at least 3 years, and we hear that he would prefer a short-term deal. What do you think is going to wind up happening with Jimmy?
Well, I mean, the thing we can all surmise is that Jimmy Butler's going to be back in Chicago at least for next year. You know, now whether he chooses to play for $4.5 million or he signs a 3-year deal where he can get, around, $60 million or somewhere around that range, whether he chooses to do that or even take the 5-year deal, I think he'll be back in Chicago. That much we know for sure because the Bulls aren't going to let him go. Now it comes down to how much does Jimmy Butler want to stay compared to how much money does Jimmy Butler want compared to how much Jimmy Butler just likes being recruited. And I think that
that element there is something that he hasn't had to deal with. You're talking about a guy who went to community college, had to fight his way out of that to get to Marquette, then had to basically make himself a shocker by being a late first-round draft pick. He's never had to go through the process of being wanted. And at this stage of restricted free agency, this is the closest thing he's going to get until he actually becomes an unrestricted free agent. So I think to a degree, he just likes the aspect of sitting back and listening to people tell them how great he is and how much they want him.
Well, is there anything – we hear different whispers about how he feels about playing with Derrick Rose, his role with the Bulls, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any, compelling reason that jumps out to you that he would want to leave?
No, and I would also say that I'm someone who's been around Jimmy Butler for all of 3 months because I got there right around the All-Star break, and he got hurt shortly thereafter. But what I will say is when you have a guy who's emerged the way that he's emerged, and he's in another guy's city, so to speak. I mean, there is no player that belongs to a city more than Derrick Rose belongs to Chicago. And when you make the sort of meteoric rise that he's made, it's natural to think how much higher you can go, how high this glass ceiling is here in Chicago relative to how much higher it can be somewhere else. But I don't see any necessary any abject unhappiness with him this season. I think the stuff with him and Derrick Rose is just a function of two guys who aren't familiar with playing next to each other at this level. I mean, Jimmy Butler emerged into a star this year, and when he was emerging, Derrick Rose was finding himself. It wasn't until the playoffs that you actually got to see two players who are ball dominant, who are scoring 20-plus points a game, trying to figure it out on the fly. And I don't think neither one of those guys realize what type of challenge that is.
We're talking to Vince Goodwill of Comcast Sports Chicago. How good is Jimmy Butler?
That's a great question, Bo. And you wonder how high his ceiling is. Like, is he Paul George before Paul George got hurt? Is he Kawhi Leonard right now? It's hard to say, and that's why his case is going to be almost like a test case, especially if he takes a short deal, a 3-year deal, and then all of a sudden he's in position to get this super max deal 2 or 3 years from now. Is he that top tier type of player at 26, 27 years old? I'm not sure. And because of the style of the way the Bulls play, because he played 40 minutes a game, there's always this room and this speculation to say, well, how much higher can he go? But some guys are built to be a 1A guy. Some guys are built to sort of grow organically and not necessarily have the responsibilities of the top 5, top 10 players in the league. And there's only, a handful of quote-unquote superstars. I think that term is thrown around, much too liberally nowadays. But I think he's a very good two-way player. I'm not sure if I would call him a superstar. I'm not even sure if he has that superstar ceiling.
All right, we're talking to Vince Goodwill of Comcast Sports Chicago. What else are the Bulls looking to do in free agency? I mean, they made the Eastern Conference Finals, but they lost to a depleted Cavaliers team.
Well, they made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals.
Correct.
And lost to a depleted Cavs team and got blown out on their home court in a Game 6. I mean, if there's nothing else that should send you really going back to the drawing board, it should be that when you lose in a game without Kyrie Irving, without Kevin Love, guys who are going to be back, along with a Cavs team that's going to be better next year. I mean, you should really reevaluate your plan. And bringing in Fred Hoiberg as a coach, that's one step. That's one change. But I think you need more. I mean, they're going to bring Mike Dunleavy back. Butler's going to be back. They need another guy who can create shots because when they came down to the last 5 minutes of the game, the only two guys you have that can get their own shots are Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler. You need another guy out there that can sort of do it off the bounce. And then you have Taj Gibson and Joakim Noah. Paul Gasol's not getting any younger. You have an older front line, so you have to find a way to sort of rebuild on the fly without necessarily completely changing the makeup of what makes you the Chicago Bulls. It's not easy.
Well, do they have any realistic options?
Well, they're going to look at guys like Marco Bellinelli, Gary Neal. A guy I think they should look at is Rodney Stuckey from Indiana, but I'm not sure if they're going to have the cash to necessarily go after those guys. They've committed to going in the tax. That's what they're going to do. They haven't been a tax team before. They're going to go into the luxury tax. They pretty much made that known. But how deep in the tax are they going to go, considering the personnel needs that they have? I think they need to go after a guy who's a mid-level exception guy and maybe get him to take a $3 million deal and hope that is enough to get him there because you're selling Chicago. But I'm not sure if they necessarily have the flexibility to make those type of moves. They're dependent a lot on internal growth. And I don't know how many guys they have on the roster who can get exponentially better next season, albeit with a new coach, who can sort of carry this team to the next level, especially with the East getting better.
All right, last question for Vince Goodwill of Comcast Sports Chicago. Does Jimmy Butler have any apprehension about the new coach and the uncertainty that comes with that?
You know what? A player that I talked to yesterday who's not a Chicago Bull, he brought that up to me. He said, he basically, not necessarily speculating, but he said, I think he believes that, you know, the Hoiberg situation is sort of giving him pause. And you're talking about a first-year guy who coached in college basketball. Now, of course, he's well known throughout league circles and things like that. But when you're talking about credibility, walking into a locker room with players, that only stretches so far until you actually see it in application. For now, Fred Hoiberg is just an unknown to Jimmy Butler. So I'm sure there's got to be some apprehension there, unless it was a brand name that they were going to bring in. Yeah, he had problems with playing 40 minutes a night under Thibodeau, but at least he knew what he was getting. Now it's a complete unknown, and it would be, I guess, it would be irresponsible of him not to have questions about what type of coaching situation he's walking into.
Vince Goodwill, Comcast Sports Chicago. My man, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate it, boss.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Weeknights from 9 to 11 Eastern or on demand at ESPNradio.com.